Hey friends, what's ahead of you is the Greater Things Cafe UK edition. I've released this one as a podcast, and in it, we just decided to hit record and talk about the conversation around what are the ways of the Lord. And so, inside of a cafe, you hear all different voices from everybody inside of it, and at the end of it, we try and bring it all together to hear what God is saying to us through our time together. So, here is the Greater Things Cafe. Hope it blesses you. Well, today on the Greater Things podcast, I am back doing something brand new. I'm sitting with part of the Greater Things family, community, whatever you want to call it. But it's one of our what we call cafes. It's one of our community gatherings that happens, and it usually happens in Australia on a Saturday night or via Zoom. But most of the crew that turn up are in the UK, so it's first thing in the morning on a Saturday morning. So they're fresh, they're ready to go. They know what they're going to say. A whole bunch of wisdom's going to be dropped on you guys today. But I'm really looking forward to having fun with this idea and thought. And so what we're doing, and I will be introducing them in just a sec, what we'll be doing is looking at a phrase in the Bible that you've probably heard a million times, but we've asked the question, what does it mean to them? So in the Old Testament, there is a verse that says that to raise your kids in the ways of the Lord. And so I asked them a question, what are the ways of the Lord? So often in churches, we use these phrases that get spoken and said time and time again, but we don't often slow down to unpack them or to understand them. And so when we did this in community, I had half a dozen different concepts of the ways of the Lord. And when we put them together, we had something quite beautiful. So let me introduce the crew to you. I'm going to just call them out. I'm going to ask them just to give 30 seconds of who is this particular person. And we're going to kick off with Elaine Taggart, all the way from Scotland. How you doing, Elaine?
I'm good, thank you.
Can you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yep. So I am Elaine. I live in Glasgow in Scotland. I've got two grown-up daughters and I run my own little business. I'm a beauty therapist and I mainly focus on treatments like aromatherapy, massage, reflexology, and manual lymphatic drainage. So that is my life.
Awesome. Love it, Elaine. Let's go to Claire. How you doing, Claire?
I'm good, thank you.
That's good. Can you do the same? Introduce yourself.
Yep, I'm Claire, and I am married to William. We've got four girls who range in age from 12 to 7. And yeah, I've lived in the States, moved to England a few years ago. So
Awesome.
glad to be.
That's great. Let me go to Merle and John Pocock. Let's go with Merle first. How you doing, Merle?
Very well, thank you.
That's good. So who is Merle Pocock?
Who is Merle Pocock? Well, first of all, we live on the south coast in England. And of course, I'm married to John. We've parented 3 sons and we are grandparents of 7 children. People describe me as a protector. So that's who I am. I agree with that because I am very passionate about equality and justice and valuing those people, or valuing others, respecting them. So yeah, I would agree that I'm a protector of the vulnerable.
I love it. Let's go to your husband to see if he confirms that.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, yes, I'm John. I don't need to regurgitate the number of children and grandchildren and whatever. As for me, gosh, I spent most of my life writing software. Spent the last 10 years of my life being a counsellor. Who am I? I'm curious. I want to know how everything works. I want to know how everything fits together. So the whole of life is a jigsaw looking to be put together, and I'm always looking for lost pieces and trying to find out how these odd pieces that I found fit together. That's me.
Love it. Thanks, mate. Great to have you with us. And lastly, we have Frances. And Frances has been hanging out with Trish and I for years, and it's just great to have her in this conversation. How are you, Frances?
I'm good, thanks, Matt. How are you?
I'm very well. Now, who is Frances Kramer?
Who is Frances? Frances is retired. She was an accountant. She works these days just volunteering in that area for not-for-profits. And I love being with people, but at the same time, I'm an introvert. So I love being with myself sometimes.
Love that. Thanks, Frances. Okay, let's jump into a conversation, and I might kick off with Elaine, so just to give her a little bit of a heads up in this conversation. And so, like I said at the start, there are so many concepts inside of churches and even the Bible that we often run over the top of without slowing down to unpack and to understand. And when we do this inside of community, it's like the combined wisdom becomes one great voice that is speaking. I love doing this sort of stuff. We've been doing it now for years, and I've learnt heaps from this particular community as well. They are so rich in wisdom. And so let's kick it off. Elaine, what is it? The ways of the Lord. How do you define that?
So I think that what in my work, I deal with clients on a one-to-one basis, and I am always very interested in the uniqueness of each person, and actually how that relates to nature as well. I think that we can see God when we are out in nature, you know. There are so many things about the way that we are created that we've come so far away from. And the thing that came in that has been rolling around in my head has been, you formed my innermost being, shaping my delicate inside and my intricate outside, and wove them all together in my mother's womb. You know, Psalm 139. And that is so true. And when you think about the way that we are formed each time, when we were created of billions, squazillions of tiny little cells, and each tiny cell has organelles that communicate with each other, and to me that is just absolutely phenomenal. And I think that we kind of, the way that the world has evolved, we've come so far away from the intricacy of how we are created. You know, you go to the doctor and no harm to the GPs, but, you know, oh, I'm feeling a bit depressed or something's wrong. Here's a pill. Here's a pill. Take that. When in actual fact, there's so much value in understanding the way that we're created and how we operate uniquely. You know, what works for me, and this is how I work with my clients, no two treatments are the same. Like, you'll not come in, there's not a uniform pattern. Each person will receive something that is completely unique to them. There are essential oils that are created from petals, from leaves, from tree bark. Each of these essential oils carry unique properties as well. And again, the oil that works for me won't work for you. You know, we're just so uniquely created. So it's really, to me, the ways of God, it's about understanding how has he created me? Because that's different to how he's created the next person. So really deeply understanding that, to me, that's the way, the ways of God.
I love the uniqueness that you pull out of that, Elaine. It's the way you talk, it's the way you think. How long have you been in this kind of revelation?
So I think that I've always I think since starting my own business, since working with people, which is years, I've always known. But I think probably more recently, I am growing in my awareness of just how unique each person is. I don't know. It seems to be more recently. Is it post-COVID? I don't know. There are so many bizarre people with bizarre issues going on. And I think it's more important now than ever to understand that. So I think probably, how long have I been in this revelation? It's probably been over the last few years, I would say. But yeah.
I love that too, Elaine, because again, revelation, when it becomes application inside of your own story and your own dialogue, your narrative, you can actually see it inside your own life. It's not just a good idea from a preacher or a Bible teaching. It has now become application. So I love that, Elaine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's go down to England and see how Claire is going to drop in on this conversation. Claire, what are the ways of the Lord to you?
I've been pondering this. I loved having the conversation last week in the cafes, because I feel like it's been just rolling around in my mind over the week. And I've been thinking a lot about the dependency in terms of relationship with God. That to me, I think increasingly there's a seeing that his ways aren't my ways, and that so often I feel like he's been untangling and where I've had a mindset of thinking that his ways are a certain way, or this is what his ways look like. I feel like he's been showing me that his ways don't necessarily always fit in that box, and that his ways may change, but look different in different seasons, in different circumstances. And that's been really challenging, because I think it's shaken is this really God? Is this really, the questions of, is it really him? But this week I was also thinking about, really tying in a little bit with what Elaine was saying, that he reminded me of something he spoke to me probably a couple of years ago now, about this being a season of accepting my story, of discovering who I am, of becoming known and being loved, and maybe think, oh, they're his ways. Like, he's spoken it, and that's something that he's investing in terms of that discovering who I am, that the identity, the whole piece of knowing, like you said, Elaine, the intricacies of how he's made you and how he's created you, and what your purpose is, who you are, and I was thinking that too with raising up youngish children, that in terms of teaching them his ways, that whole piece of helping them to discover who they are, helping them to see how they're created, and so uniquely, our girls are so different, but calling out that uniqueness in them, calling out their identity, and helping them to navigate challenges that come against that identity, in a sense. But I was thinking too of Jesus, the other thing he said about becoming known and being loved. And actually this morning too, there was a word for the day popped up on my phone, and it was about loving, I can't remember what it is, but it's when who not who is your neighbor bit, but the when I was hungry, you fed me; when I was thirsty, or didn't, whichever way the bit is it. And I was thinking about the way of being loved, and that his way, really probably boiling down to that in some senses, that coming into the knowledge, his ways coming into the knowledge of being loved, coming into the knowledge of, which I think ties with identity, but it's that who I am, but I'm his, and I'm loved, and really in some senses that's what I want my girls to know above and beyond anything else, is that they're loved, and that their call is to love other people in that. But it's, I think coming back to the dependency, even that, and even the journey that I've been on the last while, it's been sometimes loving people doesn't look like the boxes that I've thought loving people looks like, or the picture that I've had. And I think it's to me, the way of the Lord is absolutely seeking to depend upon him, seeking to lean upon him, and turn to him and look to him and hear him in all circumstances, to know, God, what are you saying? What is, how do I walk this out? How do I love this person? And
there's a bunch of thoughts inside that, Claire, because I love the difference between yourself and Elaine, where Elaine's design, you're very much identity in that piece, but they just partner together beautifully well. When did you discover that you were loved by God or by Jesus?
Oh, I'm still discovering it.
Yep.
I think I am. I think it's an ongoing revelation, but I think it's only really been well, the last couple of years, I think it's just been a journey of, I think there was a recognition of I couldn't relate to God as a father. And I think the Lord just began to help me unpack why and bring down some of those barriers. And I think it's been really in the last couple of years that there's been, I think before I've had a head, cognitive, yes, I know God loves me, agreement, but there's been that massive gap between that knowledge and the experienced and felt reality of it.
Yeah.
And so it's really only been the last 2 years where there's been like a growing revelation and sense of and knowledge in a heart way of his love. So yeah, it feels fairly new in a sense, and I do definitely feel like I'm not, there's more to go, far more to go in terms of really, really accepting his love for who I am now, and not who I, want to be or want to become. So, yeah.
I love that, Claire. Okay, let's stay in England and let's see how Mel is going to answer the question about the ways of the Lord.
I think I can sum up the ways of the Lord in 2 phrases. His ways are spacious.
Nice.
And his ways are perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I've not always appreciated that his ways are perfect, because my thoughts, like Claire was saying, my thoughts are not his thoughts, my ways are not his ways. And so his ways haven't always seemed perfect. But on the other hand, my experience through the years, looking back, I can see that I didn't really know who I was. And so the things that he led me into, or the provision he gave me, didn't always seem perfect, but looking back, they have been perfect, because he knows me better than I know myself. And the way he's fathered me has been perfect, because he's always been kind with me, and he's always been patient and gentle. And that's not what I experienced from my earthly father. A completely different experience.
Wow.
But he's always been gentle, and he's always led me into a spacious place where I can be. And in Psalms, it talks about this, that God's ways are spacious and God's ways are perfect. And he's always led me into a spacious place where I'm free to be me. And, I haven't always made the right choices, but he still led me into that spacious place. And I can also see how he's done that with my children, because my children have not always made the best choices either, as far as I'm concerned, and also as far as other people are concerned. And I know they've been judged. But his way is so gentle, his way is so loving, and I've felt his heart for my children, even when they've made mistakes. I have felt his heart, and he has a heart not to condemn or to judge. And he's covered them with his love, and he's protected them from that judgment. And I've seen him sort of hide them from that accusation, and he's brought them through to a spacious place. And I guess that's been my testimony of his ways, really, that they're perfect even when we don't think they are. And he leads us into a spacious place. It's like the gates open. I've always had that picture of, the shepherd leaving the gate open. Yeah. You can just run wild and free.
You can hear the protector in your side of you, Mel. It's beautiful. I've never heard you use that word spacious. When did that become part of your description of God's ways?
Actually, I began to experience it probably when I had a very impactful revelation of the Father's love. Wow. Because I heard somebody actually talk about the gate and the shepherd. And I thought that was such a fantastic picture of the shepherd. I can't really remember the whole story, but I've always been seeing that gate wide open ever since, that he's always leading me into this sort of spacious field. And I've had dreams and I've had visions and of beautiful wild meadows or wide open and wild spaces where I'm free to roam and free to be who I am. And I don't have to live under expectations of myself or expectations of other people. I can just be free. And I think that's been going on probably for about 15 years of seeing nothing but a spacious place for me.
I love that, Mel. Let's go to your man and see how he's going to define this.
Oh my word! How there's so many thoughts going around. I guess I always start from the point that says God is love, and we have loads of scriptures, but you particularly have something like 1 Corinthians 13 that says love is. Yeah. And if it says love is, then it must also be saying God is. God is kind. God is patient. God doesn't boast. God doesn't insist on his own way. God and all of these things. So God's ways are the ways in which he loves, the ways in which he works those things out with each of us. And when we say his ways are higher than our ways, or different from our ways, see, all of that stuff is not the way of the world. The way of the world is about being right.
Yeah.
The way of the world is about being powerful. But God's ways are the ways of a father and the ways of a mother. And he works out those relationships with each person. I mean, what I've seen probably most clearly is the way in which, it's like it says, God does not insist on his own way. God doesn't have anything to boast about. God doesn't have anything to prove. Because he's got nothing to prove, he's perfectly able to cope with our mess ups.
Yeah.
He's been able to cope with our misunderstandings and our misrepresentation of him, and still keep coming, and still keep fathering, and still keep mothering, and still keep caring. Right to the point where, he comes to earth, and we crucify God for blasphemy. We crucify God for sedition. And what does he do? He comes back and he says, it's okay, you've forgiven. Because his ways are ways of forgiveness. His ways are ways of growing, of hoping. No, it says hope, love. God hopes all things. God believes all things. Now, if that's not higher than my way, I don't know what is. So
I know.
There's my...
Yep. Let me ask you a question then, because I know you've held this revelation for a long time. One of the observations which I really love is hearing what a marriage thinks, and for you two to answer. And we've got the protector, and we've got this great God is love moment that sits on the couch with us. This is decades, though. You've been pondering the love of God for a long time, though, haven't you, John?
Oh, gosh. I've been trying to know and understand that. I mean, yes, from the time when we were so impacted by the Father's love, but I can remember talking to people who'd known us for years before that, saying, well, this was you, this is what you talked about years ago. And there's always been in me since I was a teenager.
Wow.
When I first heard the idea that the scriptural term, the day of the Lord, actually means the day when God gets everything that his heart desires. And so this idea of what is it that God wants? What is it that God's heart's desire? What is his nature? What is he doing? What, all of that? How can I fit into that? How can I hasten that? Because scripture says we can hasten it. Has been part of me since probably mid-teens. And I'm 70 this year.
I wasn't going to say that, mate.
No, I don't mind. I'm quite pleased with the idea.
And we're going to jump to Francis in a sec. The idea for me with what you guys are saying, it's adding into each part of the conversation. But there's been a time in life where a seed has been sown for each of these conversations to be happening right now. And from a teenager all the way through to the age of 70, this has been something that's becoming the harvest inside of you, John. And I love it. Absolutely, really love it. Okay, Francis.
Well, probably a little bit like Mel and John. I think for me, it's his loving faithfulness, his steadfastness. Like he's always been that safety net that that underpins me, even if I make wrong decisions, he seems to come through with, okay, you made a wrong choice, but let's see how we can just rectify that. And he always offers me, or he seems to offer a way out, a place to make another choice. So he's like that rock that I've been able to rely on as I've journeyed through life. And his provisions for me have been amazing in so many ways, just with the people he's put around me, what he's given me to live with and by. I've always known that he's looking after me.
Yeah. So when you say you've always known, that's a revelation you've carried since you've been a little girl?
Yeah, I think I've always felt that God was there. And yeah, he was always kind of walking with me, kind of, even if I haven't always acknowledged it in the same way, it's something I've always known. Yeah.
I love that. I love that, Frances. Thank you for that. So when we're putting all this together, for everyone who's listening, this is how we normally do what we call a cafe. We're listening to the combined wisdom that sits inside of a room. And so you can hear Elaine talking about the uniqueness of every human on the planet, and she went to the whole cellular level. It's a passion of hers, and you can feel it, you can hear it inside of her. And then when we clicked over to Claire, she's talking about identity from that aspect of being loved, and the whole concept of when did I realize I was loved. And I love how you picked up, Claire, that I knew it from a cognitive point of view, but it was the experiencing it. And like even with Frances, like she's been experiencing it in some way, shape, or form since a little girl. And like just the three of you, so different in your experiences, but again, the way that it's locking together. And then we sat with the married couple on the couch, and both Merle and John, and we listened to the spaciousness. And you said the word, Merle, freedom, and like for the rest of us, and I was even watching Elaine at the time when you were talking about running through the wildflowers, and she was smiling, and it's like Elaine was right there in the field with you. She wanted to burst through that gate and just go, yep, that's where we're going to be. And then we have the concept of John talking about the Father's love and drawing 1 Corinthians 13 in it. And so again, you see a conversation that starts in the Bible, becomes experiential. They're using the Bible to get to where they're understanding. And then we're starting to form up this idea of the ways of the Lord from a community point of view. Does anyone else want to jump in and say anything? Claire, go for it.
Yeah, I was just thinking when Mel, when you were talking about the spaciousness and the whatever, I was struggling a little bit because I was like, God, but that's where I want to be. Like I want to see that, like, spacious. I want a nice field to be in, and I feel like the way's narrow. You know what I mean? And I feel like sometimes the way is narrow. You know, kind of like, and that to me, that's some of the wrestles with the ways of the Lord, is that sometimes it can be one way and another time it's another way, and it can be different for different people, but it's all God, kind of. But I was thinking that's what it feels like. It feels like I'm on this little narrow path right now, like, and he's drawing me, leading on me on, but it's narrow, and he says his way is narrow, like, so it's not, unbiblical. It's not, and so it's those wrestles of how, kind of the ways of the Lord can look so different in some ways. But it made me think, because I was like, literally, I feel like I'm on a little tight path. Like, where is this nice open space, and where is the spaciousness of this? And I totally hear you, and I get that there is that space, but I was also feeling like, to me at the moment, the ways of the Lord's like, this is a narrow path that you're, seeking to walk, or that he has me on, that doesn't feel spacious, it feels like it's tight, it's pressing, it's hard at times, but he's with me in it, and there's that I know he's leading on it, but it just made me think that.
Go for it, Mel.
I have been on narrow paths, and I think that's why I said, not always do I think his way is perfect, because when you're on that narrow path, it doesn't seem very perfect at all. But there's a reason why we're on that narrow path, I guess, because he's leading us through something where it feels tight at the time, but it's necessary. And so he's bringing us through that into this spacious place. And I guess, although I've been on those narrow paths, I've always seen up until now, my experience up until now is that it always leads to an open place of freedom. So
the valley of the shadow of death leads to a table set in front of, the narrow place leads to a spacious place. But I think this is the thing that I'm so struck by, is that the way of the world is to be right. There has to be one answer. It has to be boxed in, and this is what it looks like, and this is how you do it. And if you don't do it the way you're supposed to do it, then tough luck, and you're out, and you're a heretic, and you're a whatever. But it's not about being right. That's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's about sitting under the tree of life and learning to walk with a God who is a perfect father and a perfect mother, and who deals with us with the heart of a perfect father and a perfect mother. Yeah. I go to, we talk about Moses, knowing the ways of the Lord and all the rest of it. And I go right back to Moses standing there and saying, well, what's your name then? Who shall I say sent me? And you get this answer, which is, we always translate as tell them that I am has sent you. But what I understand is that there's not really any difference between a present and a future tense in Hebrew. So that's just as easily translated as I will be who I will be. And essentially what it's saying is, well, if you want to know who it is you sent that sent you, you better walk with me and find out moment by moment who I am. And that's the way. Yeah. And as a moment by moment walking, finding out who God is for me in this moment, and knowing how he's fathering, how he's mothering me.
That's so good. Thanks, John. I think Claire wants to have is that right, Claire? Do you want to jump in again?
I was just going to say, there were three things that have come to mind as we've been talking about the ways the Lord is thinking about his ways being ones of transformation, of that taking something, kind of like, and changing it into a new thing. And I know redemption is kind of like a Christianese word, but that redeeming, that kind of taking, what's not right, or but what's not healed, whole, whatever, and bringing restoration, bringing life and hope and joy, those places where it's the things that aren't how he wanted, but also his creativity, that in that his ways are creative, and his ways don't always getting that not looking the same, but actually he's a creative God. He's creative in the ways that he deals with us. He's creative, and so it struck me, those three things, that actually his ways all even through all history, like, he's been transforming, he's been redeeming, he's been creating and creative. And so I guess seeing that in a different way, in terms of, how do I bring up the girls, how do I that whole expecting that even if I see behavior like this right now, they're not going to stay that way, because God's working, you know what I mean? Like, he's changing, and believing that it's that journey. It's not just what John, you were saying, it's like that journey of being with him and walking with him, and but not being boxed into, or letting him undo the boxes, is probably really what he's having to do with me. Totally destroy the boxes that have been there.
Yeah, it's awesome, Claire. And it's one of the things I love about you, Claire, is you always bring it back to practical. How do I do this with the girls? And the challenges that you face every single day. It's one of the great things about you. Frances, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, just as we were chatting, I'm thinking about really the generosity of his love towards us, because all he asks from us is that we love him. And then he deals with everything else. He grows us, he teaches us, he's patient with us, he leads us. He does all of those things, and all he asks of us is that we love him back.
Mm.
And that's the generosity of his heart towards us.
Mm. Yeah. Go for it, Elaine.
I think when Meryl was talking about the wide open space, the spaces, it reminded me of last year. I had this revelation that he was bringing me out of self-imposed expectation.
Mm.
And I thought, all right, so I've put all these limitations on myself, and I think what Claire said as well, you know, we put these expectations on ourselves, don't we? We beat ourselves up. I think you can think about religion and all the rules and regulations, and then, well, I'm not quite meeting the mark. And so I think when you were talking about the wide open space, I thought, yeah, that's why it was striking a chord. There was a verse that I was trying to look for it. I can't remember what the verse was that he gave me at the time, but so that's completely irrelevant. But no, I love it. And I love how everyone talking brings healing.
Yeah.
Everything that everyone says brings healing. There's always something that we haven't thought about ourselves, and so yeah, love it.
Yeah, I do as well. In the idea of a podcast, we try and keep this to a time frame that doesn't go too long, but in a cafe, the conversation often spills into even greater areas, or we all find some sort of rabbit hole to go down and land into some sort of place of revelation. As we pull this together, for all of you guys listening, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll actually have seen the joy of these guys sharing as well. And I trust in the recording, you're actually able to feel the joy and feel the revelation that's happening. For me, the idea of the ways of the Lord starts with Jesus saying, love others as I have loved you. If I'm doing that, then God is doing stuff because he is love. If I can love Francis as Christ has loved me, the kingdom of God builds between Francis and I, and we're included in the conversation. When I draw Elaine into that, it's a threefold. When I draw Merle and John, we're up to 5. And then when we join in with Claire and the beautiful Catherine, who's hanging out with Claire today, this is the conversation for me of the kingdom of God, the ways of the Lord. Years ago, when I led a church, it was often the one voice. You know, when we looked at the concept that God's ways are higher than our ways, this is what I found as his ways. Everyone's got a voice. Everyone's got a revelation. Everyone's got a testimony. Everyone's got a story. And what you've watched is listened to is one story adding to another story, adding to another story, adding to another. And so you guys watched that when Merle opened the gate. And all of a sudden we find ourselves on this narrow path, and the conversation lands in that way. I often think of that, Merle, and the idea that the narrow gate means that we go through it with Jesus. We don't go through it as a crowd or a bunch. We go through it personally. And so when we're walking on that path, we're walking with Christ. It's not the crowd, it's with him. And so then we get today, like where there's been half a dozen of us on that path, walking along it. And you can sort of imagine it in your head that Merle might be at the back talking, and we're like, yeah, that's a great idea. And all of a sudden you see the conversation flow through the little traveling party that's going along this narrow path that started from this gate that Merle's like, it's open. We're going to go find the wide open spaces. John leads us into the place at the feast table where we can dine in the comfort and the fullness of what God has prepared for us. But then you got Claire's voice too, where she says, I want to be there. And this is, to me, such the beauty of the community. Like, Mel can give a statement and everyone doesn't go, 100% I'm right there. Somebody's like, I want to be there. And let me talk about that. And that honesty, that authenticity draws us into a place of understanding of what Claire's walking through, but then it broadens the revelation of what God has given to us. Okay, friends, this is Greater Things Podcast community. There's going to be more of these that we want to do, and I love getting people's voices into every conversation. It was a beautiful revelation of mine a number of years ago when it was the concept of pastor, where you seem to have to hold everything and know everything about the Holy Spirit and God. When you come to that place of going, man, I'm just scratching the surface, and you lean back, you let every other voice into the conversation, there is something of his ways in that I think I'm learning and growing in, but it's something for the kingdom of God to listen to as well. But this is the Greater Things podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be back in your ears next time. Bye for now.